Yes, let's talk about why mesh for your mealworms isn't working like you think it is. What a lot of people will do when they start raising mealworms, they'll go to YouTube and they'll look for how to raise mealworms. And a lot of times they're going to find people recommending this. Take some screen window mesh and make a bottom out of it on one of your trays. And whether your tray is one of these guys, whether it's a big blue tray like mine, whether it's a drawer system, what you'll see is folks will cut out the bottom of that container and then put that mesh there. And it works, but it doesn't. And here's how it works. So what'll happen is those beetles, the females are not going to want to put their parts, we won't get too dirty here, they don't want to put their parts down through that mesh and lay into open air. That's not a safe space for the egg to go. They may do it out of panic or because there's nowhere else to lay. It's possible that they could lay right on the edge of that mesh and the egg is there. But the eggs are kind of sticky when they come out, and so they're not just going to fall. They're going to stick to something unless somehow the female is able to get through that mesh, which is very tiny for window screen, and drop an egg. What normally happens here for folks that have this system, like it works if you're raising reptiles, if you have a need for a small volume of mealworms. But if you need a larger amount, especially for chickens, the mesh method is going to work but not be optimal in the sense that you're not going to get as many mealworms as you could potentially get. Instead, what you should be doing is taking a mesh bottom container or tray and putting it on the substrate like this. Here's an example of a beacon camp tray and a beacon camp insert, right? And so what this does is it lays down into the tray. There's supposed to be substrate here when you've got your beetles in on top, so the substrate's underneath. And the females, these are big enough squares here that the females will see the square and be able to lay down into this. The males want to eat the eggs. And so the male's shoulders are broader than that mesh, and they can't get in there and eat after the female has been able to lay. In the mesh bottom trays that are elevated above the substrate, you're going to get larvae out of that. It's going to happen, but it's not going to be as many. So that's why people will say it works, and it does, if your goal is lower production, or you just don't realize that it's causing lower production. So if you take some sort of mesh screen that's big enough and put it on the substrate, you're going to have a much higher success rate. So I'm currently rolling out, I'm just going to build my own because the tray that I showed you is super expensive and it's not very durable. It's a first generation product, and so it needs a little bit of work. So I'm just going to build my own. I will document all of that. I'll post all of that here. I'm going to start rolling that out in the next week or two, getting them into my beetle trays so that I can increase production without increasing tray count. The mesh method works. It's just not optimal for somebody who's wanting to do mealworms for chickens because you're going to find that you're not getting the production that you could get out of the population that you have.